was times for reflection and times for action. But this is very much a situation for reflection, definitely. But considering what has been said by the keynote speakers and the comments that we had concerning France and Finland, of course it's a bit premature to ask, but are there any action points you would like to change? Or at least when it comes to reflections about the actions, are there any differences and when you see to the French and the Finnish approaches, and not only just from the technical point of view, if you are repositorying in the granite or clay, of course. So please go ahead.
I think I would start by the similarities and then come to the differences.
Well, that could be more interesting.
Yeah. I think it's very nice to have these three countries represented. They are really three European countries representing, one might say, the forefront of going towards implementation of deep geological disposal. And that is a similarity. We are dependent upon each other, as was mentioned earlier. Success in one country would mean better possibilities in another country, and the contrary. I was a couple of weeks ago in the United States, and they, as we all know, has come back more or less to square zero, which I think is a very bad position. They've lost a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of work for tens of years, and resulting in a way in more or less nothing in terms of progress. And they have 100 reactors. They have spent fuel standing in different situations around these reactors. They have some reactors that are being phased out, and the only thing remaining at those sites will be the spent fuel. I don't think the municipalities will be long-term happy about such a situation, and in practice that will be the case in that country for maybe 30, 40 years or even more. So there are promising examples in Europe, and there are also examples that we certainly want to avoid. Differences between our countries. Of course, there are differences in many of the details. One major difference is, of course, between France on one side and Sweden and Finland on the other, in terms of the basic perception of a spent fuel as a resource or something that should be handled as a final waste. Just to remind, actually, in Sweden, when the nuclear power program started in Sweden, the perception was that we should reprocess, and the first few reactors and the load of the first reactors were sent for reprocessing. Then we had a shift related to cost, related to proliferation issues, and the political consensus that we should not reprocess. And that has since then been a stable situation. So that's a big difference. Sweden and Finland are really working together as twins. I think it's fair to say that Finland has benefited a lot on the technical side by taking more or less the same type of concept, participating in its development together with SKB, and certainly in terms of credibility, in terms of a good example on the political decision side, the Finnish example has been very good for us in Sweden, because you have already, there's a big difference in a way, you have a decision about what method to use, the KBS method. It's decided, as I understand it, all the way up to the parliament many years ago, 2000. And you have the decision also not only by COSIVA but by the political system on the site. In Sweden, we still have to get those decisions from the treatment of the license application. On the other hand, we have put also a license application to get the license to construct a repository, and that, I understand, remains in the Finnish system. So it's not an important question, but in terms of who is the first, who is the second, who is the third, I think between Sweden and Finland, you are one step ahead with one leg, and we are one step ahead with another leg, if that's possible. So that's the situation. If I have some more time, maybe a few reflections on some, let's say, dualities that we are meeting and has already been highlighted in the discussions. I think it's possible to describe what we are doing. Of course, it's possible to say it's complex. I fully agree with Monsieur Gounod that it's a complex project, it's a long-term project and so on. But at the same time, it's simple, if I may say so. It's the technology, of course, means a lot of complexity, a lot of basic science, but I will still say that new reactors, generation 4 reactors, technically speaking, are much more complex than the type of technical system we are planning to implement. The process, decision process, and I think that is important to discuss, has become more and more complex. The positive side of that is, of course, more and more involvement, more and more in-depth discussion of all possible aspects. But maybe we should discuss a little bit to how far can that go without, as I was saying in my introduction, without stopping the possibilities to make moves, to take decisions, to go forward. If I look at what happened in Sweden between 75 and 85 in this country, we built 12 nuclear reactors and put them online to provide electricity. We built the SFR repository, the interim storage facility, and we set up the transportation system within time frame of 10 years. License application, licensing, construction put into operation. That would not be possible today in Sweden. Maybe that is good, because of course there was a lack, probably, of discussion of many aspects at that time. But just, I think it's important to reflect on that. What was possible in terms of decisions, implementing decisions 30 years ago, and what is possible today. It's much more complex to open new industrial sites, for instance. So there is a complexity around decision processes, the possibilities to move forward. The political decision system in Finland is definitely more straight on than in Sweden. I wouldn't, without reflection, say, sitting close to Timo, that means that they are not as good decisions as in Sweden. They probably are, but that's a different decision culture. And that's interesting to look at, I think.
Thank you so much. It was actually just coincidence, but it happened that the doers are on this side and the thinkers are on this side. If you excuse the dichotomy, which is a bit maybe artificial, but it wasn't at all my intention. But now actually we've heard 3 different countries and how they manage things, and also touched upon both the interactivity and complexity of decisions and the interaction with society, but also on the judicial questions concerning how to look upon the areas of responsibility, who is it public or private sector who is responsible to which point, and also questions actually of how do we define the waste. Just in order as you speak, do you